What's up, everybody? Mace here, back with DK in DK's studio today, recording our third video we've ever done. Title of the video today is You're In or You're Out. So DK, thanks for having me, brother. Great to see you today.
Good to see you.
I'm excited to dive into this today. I know we talked a little bit about you're in or you're out, in our lives and our journey.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kick this right off by asking you, what does this mean to you? What does you're in or you're out mean to you? And let's get a couple examples of where this has helped you, along your journey of success, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good topic. I mean, it's a good point because I think everybody, right? And this is something you and I really kind of have in common. I think the first time that we sat down, we kind of went through and we talked about kind of in a nutshell all of the things we've experienced. And it's like you go through your life thinking you want to be one thing or another, or do one thing or another. And when you're young, it's funny because you're all in, but you don't really know what it is you really even want to do.
Right.
And so then you get to a point where you're like, geez, I'm all in to this or that, but it's not really me. And do I really have a passion for this? Does this have any meaning to me? Or am I just doing it for money? Or am I just doing it because I thought it was what I want? And so when that time comes, you have to make a decision. And you have to make that decision. Am I in or am I out? And sometimes the easy decision is just to stay in.
Right.
Just to stay. I'm making money. I've got security. But are you really happy? Do you have any meaning? Do you have any fulfillment? And so you've got this internal battle or conflict, right? And it's like, well, what do I do? And the scary thing is walking away from something that's supporting you, that is working, right? That is working. But you could also say that, is there anything more terrifying than spending your entire life doing something that doesn't mean anything to you? I mean, think about that. And which one is scarier, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I mean, personally, one thing that if I have to, and we've talked about this too, like every man at some point in their life, you've got to be able to take a step outside yourself, right?
Yep.
And look back and say, hey, do I see the person that I want to be or that I think I am or desire to be? If you take a step outside yourself and look back and objectively criticize, well, what is it that you see? And that's tough to do. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you're not what you're supposed to be or never will be. It just means that you've got to be objective with yourself and strive to become that person that you truly want to embody. And so from my own personal experience, I've been out on everything I've ever done, quite frankly.
I love it.
I've never really been fully in or fully committed. All of the businesses I've had, anything I've done professionally, I really only did for the money. And it was believe me, it was a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. No vacations, no going. I mean, this was, I've gone in the last couple of years, finally done some vacations and stuff. But for a long time, you don't do anything, right? Right. Because you've got to make that sacrifice. You've got to create some type of foundation. But I've walked away from all of it, and right now I'm right in the middle of just being out, and then I'm ready to find that thing that you can be all in on. And it's never going to be one thing, one lane. That's just not who I am.
Right.
But one thing about myself that I've learned, and it takes time to learn about yourself. It takes time to understand who you are, what it is that you really want to do, and what your purpose is. And what do you want to be remembered for?
Right.
Right?
Right. What's your legacy?
Exactly. And so for me personally, one thing that I've discovered about myself over all these years and in being, getting out of these things that very lucrative opportunities, and believe me, it's come at a heavy cost, but I had to do it. And now I'm going, what is it that I really love? What is it that I do whether I'm getting paid or not. And that's talk to people, work with people, networking, connecting with people, strategizing, you know, the psychology of people and just understanding why people do the things they do. And so what I've kind of decided is that I am going to probably just start a whole new company. We're going to start doing stuff just like this. We're going to do media stuff, and we're going to do networking stuff, and we're going to help other people's businesses grow. And so if anybody is looking to grow their business, looking to do media stuff like this, my number is not hard to find, and we're going to do it. Yeah. I don't have all the game plan put together yet, because another thing that I've learned is that if you want to have every single detail planned out, start to finish, you'll never start.
Yep.
It's like...
It's too big of a task.
It's paralysis by analysis, right? You ain't gonna fucking move an inch. And people these days, too much information.
Yep.
There's so much information right there.
Right.
Too much information. It's too much. And so it creates all these distractions. And sometimes you just gotta do it. And sometimes you just gotta walk out the door and say, I'm done with this shit, and I'm gonna do what I like, and I'm gonna do something that I can be in, where I can be in, right? And I know you can relate to that.
Oh, man.
I know you can relate to that.
I mean, and I'm thinking when this came to me of you're in or you're out, based upon the conversations that me and you have had, and me knowing what I know about your journey, the reason why I wanted to dive into this today is because you being out, think about you understanding the value of being out has pushed you to finding your purpose, which is almost a never-ending journey. There is no secret recipe to the pursuit of happiness.
There's not.
Happiness is when you're doing what you love.
Right.
But think about that with you being out in the different ventures that you've done, where you think you're in at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Because you only know what you know.
Yeah.
Especially growing up, modest, growing up blue collar, hardworking town, where it's like, oh, hey, if we could make 50 grand or 100 grand or 150 grand, I'd eat a shit sandwich.
Yeah.
I don't care what it would take, I'd eat a shit sandwich. Then you make that money and you're like, what the fuck? I would not eat a shit sandwich for this.
Yeah.
Because you're not fulfilled. So tell me.
You're so right.
So tell me a little bit, and you don't got to get too detailed, but tell me a little bit about some of these ventures that when you were out and you knew it.
Yeah.
How did you act upon it, and what did that do to you to get you to that next opportunity?
It's a good question. It's an interesting thing. I sometimes have a tendency to when I make a decision, it's like that's it.
Yep.
Right? There's no going back.
Yep.
And so when I'm out, I'm out. That's it.
Yep.
And so there was one specific example. Years ago, I had a bar and restaurant. And I thought, I just want to have a place. I just want to have a place. I didn't really plan anything out at all. It was just like, I just wanted to prove a point. And it was really only that I could have this if I wanted it.
Right.
And so I just did it. And I just kind of figured it out along the way. And it was cool. Everybody had a good time. And it was a success in the sense that I did it.
Yep.
But in doing it, you get in there and you start to realize what it actually takes to run something like that. Yeah. And you're going, it's a lot more fun to walk in there with $1,000 in your pocket and do whatever you want and go home, and you can act like you own the place just doing that, and it's actually better. But I went through that, and I just kind of, and I put all the money I had. At the time I was 24, I was 25 years old, and I put every penny I had into it. And then, and it's a long story of how ultimately I just didn't do a good enough job. You have to take responsibility regardless of any outside factors. But there was one moment where I knew I was out. And the guy who I leased the building from and then had purchased the place from, and then I put a ton of money, built it out or whatever. There was one moment where I had kind of been fed up and had it with the whole thing. And then he said something to me that pissed me off. And it was like, for whatever reason, that was the breaking point. And I looked at him right in his face. I said, there will never be a day where I ever give you another fucking penny in my lifetime. And the next day, I backed up a U-Haul to the place, ripped out what I could of there, and fucking skated. And I lost, I don't even know, 6-figure, it was a lot of money. And I had nothing. And so I went and I moved back in to a little rental house that I had over off of Clark Road, and it was a dump. I mean, well, I was renting. I didn't own it yet. I was renting the place, and I sat there and I thought, either I can sit here, feel sorry for myself, point the finger, blame everybody else, right? Yep. Which is something that people could easily do, and they do often do.
Right.
And I even asked myself while I was in the place, I said, I could theoretically afford to have kept the place open, but why would I do it? Just out of pride? Am I going to sit here and out of my own pride and ego let this drain me to nothing, just so that everyone else doesn't see me fail? Or do I just take it on the chin like a man, take a walk, chalk it up, lesson learned, and go back out there and make up for it, or just recover, move forward? And that's like the price of an education. But if I would have stayed and kept going, think of all the time that would have gone by, and ultimately we would have ended up in the same place. Only I would have burned through all the other money and all the other potential opportunities.
Ton of more money and a lot more energy.
Yeah, and so I just knew at that time, I said, I gotta go, I'm done with it. And even taking that loss, there was a relief that you felt that I don't have to deal with this anymore. And the energy that goes toward the stress of that is a lot to carry. And so the relief of just knowing I don't have to worry about this anymore, that peace of mind kind of unleashes you a little, if you want to look at it that way. And harnessing that energy, whether it's out of spite for the fact that you just screwed something up, it's hard to live with. But I think if you can accept that, hey, these are my choices, my decisions, then at least you can own it, right? And that's the thing. I think a lot of people are more upset with the fact that they're letting the outside factors control them, ultimately meaning they're not in control, they're not the boss. And so everybody would say, well, you did a good job, you had a bad break, whatever. No, I didn't do a good job. I did a shit job. And the place ultimately wasn't what it was supposed to be because of the choices I made. But at least I can own that. And at least I went out on my own terms. And at least I'm the boss. Because they're my choices, they're my decisions. And then you can move forward because you can overcome those things and be in charge of your life.
That's strong. I love that. And I mean, it goes back to the first couple of episodes that we've done, the conversations we have about the loss really making the man. And, not a lot of people talk about that. Man or woman, just in general, of that adversity, that trial and tribulation, blossoming you into somebody that you may not have even known you can become. Absolutely. Harnessing that energy and putting it to what that next journey is, knowing you're not going to fuck up again. Letting that sting.
And you have to be careful because sometimes those mistakes cause you to change. They should humble you, right? But you've got to be careful too, because then all of a sudden you're operating out of fear of failure. And so you have to be careful not to cross over into that defensive position all the time. And it happens. It's normal. Anybody who's experienced any type of loss like that would naturally resort to more of a defensive position in making decisions. And so you've got to be a little bit careful. So you've got to learn from it, but don't let it completely change the way that you act and the way that you operate.
Right.
Just make it, just allow it to make you more aware.
Yep.
And see far enough ahead, but also know that you can make decisions along the way when you see the writing on the wall to change that path.
Yep.
To change that path. We're still going from here to there, but if something we don't like gets in the way, we got to go around. We got to go this way. We got to go that way. Still forward, but we got to be able to push through, under, over, around, whatever, whatever those obstacles are, and have the confidence that when they come, if they come, we'll get through them, right? And you can relate to that. I mean, you've walked away from a very lucrative position. I think when we were talking about when you were back in the car business, right? I mean, you were making a lot of money.
Yep.
These guys beg you to come back.
Yep.
And you're just not going to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the milestones of my life of being out. Yeah. That changed me forever. And, when I think of this, and kind of like I said, leading up to this of like, you're in or you're out. This isn't some bullshit. You work hard and you're in, or you don't work hard and you're out. Yeah. The lesson behind you're in or you're out to me is what being out has done to catapult my life in the direction that it is. Yeah. Right. And so there's two moments that I can remember, or that I think of when I think of being out changed my life forever. And the first moment is I'm sitting, it's probably 15 years ago or 13 years ago. I'm sitting in class at Grand Valley, and initially had always been a student athlete, right? And then now I was just a student. I'm sitting in class. I looked at my boy from Grand Valley. He'll never forget this. My boy Nate. I saw him, but I looked at him and I said, dude, I'm out. I will never come to another class like this. Yeah. Because my journey has nothing to do with what I'm learning right now. And I was a stubborn bastard. I literally left class, went to the HR admin office, and literally dropped out before I told my parents, because I already knew the advice that I was going to get from everybody else. Yeah. They don't want their son or their friend or their brother to drop out of college. They're worried for him, right? And that was when it was like, you have to go to college to be successful. Right. Right. And it took a lot of courage to know that, look, I don't have to go to college to be successful. So I remember I did that. Yeah. I went all quote unquote into the auto industry, where at least I thought I was all the way in. Yeah. Because growing up modest and saying, hey, if I can knock down this, or this, I'll do whatever. The disadvantage of the auto industry is that you're there all the time, right? So what being in did for me throughout a decade of my life was greater than any financial goal that I ever sought out to have, right? I always wanted to be growing up. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be wealthy, but I didn't strive to be multi-millionaire. I just wanted to do well, right? Because there was things like basketball and time that I valued with my friends, and those things that I still do, right, that drove me more than what money did. So dropping out of college, jumping in the auto industry, crushing it, and then the second out moment that changed me forever is our second son. My wife Carol and I's second son, Storm, was born. Mm-hmm. I'm general sales manager at the time, youngest general sales manager in West Michigan, doing well, right? Have a team of 60, 70 people. Thought that I was living my dream. In the suit, on the TV, right? Thought that was my dream. Yeah. Until I matured enough to where my dream changed. Yeah. And it was the month after our biggest month we had ever had. And I decided I was out. Right?
Funny how that goes.
And I'm at home. I have 10 years into this place. I cried like a baby for 2 weeks because I already knew there was nothing that could be offered to me, money-wise or schedule-wise.
I know that feeling.
That would keep me in. So what I did is the second that I knew, I harnessed it. I put it into a resignation letter. I did not let any other outside influences determine me being out. I sent it to my owner. I sent it to my director. It was all with all due respect, and I was out, bro.
Yeah.
And when I resigned from a very lucrative position, I did not have a job because I knew.
How'd you feel at that moment, though?
Amazing. Amazing.
That's the funny part.
You want to know why? It's because I didn't have a job, but I had this fire burning inside me that was greater than any job I could have lined up.
And you had like freedom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Not the sense of like just, it's not even always a time freedom, like, but creative freedom, right? It's like you can do something that you want to do.
Yep.
It's like not something that's pulling like a chore, like you have to do it. It's not that you don't want to work or put in that time, but like to enjoy it and build something that you, it's like you're just digging deeper into it if you would have stayed.
100%.
Right? You had the best
It would have been the easy thing to do.
Yeah, if you had
and I
the
would
best
still be there
month.
right now. I wouldn't even be sitting here with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why, like, even though trusting your gut puts you in situations where you will lose, you and I have experienced that big time, right?
Yeah.
The reward or the benefit of trusting your gut outweighs way more than that loss, because a loss just then becomes a part of the lesson.
And I think the true lesson in it all, right? Because I know exactly, and it's funny, the part of all the stuff you just said to me, the one part of it that's really sticking in my head right now is even when you said we had the best month ever, we had the best, highest earnings ever. And so like, and I was in the same position, and this is what I always find interesting and that we kind of have in common. And it's like, when I had my best year ever, right? I made the most money I ever made a couple years ago. And for whatever reason, I got to that same point and it was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. I'm walking away. I'm selling my business. I'm selling what I got and I'm starting over. And I'm still in the middle of that, working some of that stuff out. But like, it's a weird thing how you go, wait a minute, why in the world would you do that when you're right there? You're right there.
Right.
But you know, and I know at that time, if we stayed, then you're just digging, you feel like you're just digging your own grave.
100%.
Right? Because now, if I'm in now and I'm even that much farther, I'll never get out. And the lesson in all of it, and the real question that I think what we have to ask, and here's the kind of flip on it all, right? Are you in or out on life?
Right.
Because we might not be in or out on that particular business opportunity or whatever it is. And if we would have stayed in those things, what are we compromising? What are we sacrificing? What are we giving up in exchange?
What means the most?
Right. And so are you in or out on life?
Right.
Because are you just going through the motions, settling for what's there or what's comfortable or just what is? Or are you going to build the life you actually want, the one you actually truly visioned?
Right.
Which one is it?
Right. I love it, DK. Thank you. Thank you for the wisdom. You know, I want to challenge everybody watching this video right now. Ask yourself, are you in or are you out? The main point that I wanted to get across today is it is okay to be out. It is okay to lose. Trust your gut. Find what you're passionate about, because when you do that, you're naturally going to be in and exceed your expectations of what that journey will be. Thank you for joining us. Episode 3. A lot more episodes coming. Appreciate you, DK. Thanks for having me, brother.